Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Welcome to Hong Kong Confidential. I'm Jules Hannaford and I'm your host. I'm an Australian woman and I've been living in Hong Kong for many years. I'm a mother, a teacher, an author, and I want to share my wisdom and the wisdom of others with you. Thanks for joining me and I hope you enjoy the show.
From life on a farm in rural Australia, where wide open spaces made a young woman yearn to know what was beyond her country town. She moved to the city, became a mother, and found her dream career which took her across the world. But still, something was missing. In her search for love, she traveled far, trusted deeply. She wanted so badly to find someone that she almost lost herself in the process, and learned some hard lessons along the way. Fool Me Twice, a new memoir by Jules Hannaford. Available August 20th on Amazon.
Today I'm here with Kate McAlister. Hi Kate, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Tell me a bit about yourself and how you came to be in Hong Kong.
I am from California, born and raised, and I always studied education. I have been an early childhood educator for a long time, and I finished my master's in California. And then I decided it's time for me to go on a little bit of a venture. So I did a backpacking trip through Europe, got the travel bug, and I came back when I ran out of money back to California. And I just started looking for jobs abroad, and I'd never been to Asia, and I found this job in Hong Kong, came over like a month after I got offered the job, and only thinking I'd be here for a year and a half, and now it's been 7.5 years.
Wow, that's a bit like me. I came for 2 years, and this is my 18th year.
Wow.
It happens to a lot of people. They stay here for a long time. It's a cool city, isn't it?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, we're so lucky with the outdoor space and all the beautiful hiking, all the travel that we can do as educators here as well. How much we've seen of Asia. It's incredible.
And there's great schools here and the students are really great, aren't they? They're
Absolutely.
so well behaved. We're very lucky. Hey, tell me what happened when you first got ill.
It sort of came out of nowhere. Looking back at the situation, I did notice a couple of days before some pains in my neck, but I just was saying to my friends, ooh, I need to go for a massage.
As we do in Hong Kong.
Yeah. So I just felt a little bit of a strain, but nothing really I thought much about. I had been on a Sunday and I'd been dragon boating all day. I felt fine the whole day. Stayed around a little bit later. And then I was on my way back and I just started to feel really bad. And I was luckily with a friend of mine. And I just really started to feel really nauseous. I sort of got a sensation that came through the right side of my body, sort of like this tingle sensation. I wouldn't call it painful. It just was a really weird feeling that went through my right side of my face. And then a couple minutes later, I just started to vomit. And I really couldn't stop. I was lucky, once again, that I was with my friend. He really helped me, and it didn't feel like a normal vomiting or nauseousness.
It didn't feel like you had food poisoning or something like that?
No, it just sort of felt like it came on really suddenly. But you're so focused on the immediate pain of vomiting that you're not really analyzing anything. You're just so focused on getting to a toilet, basically. And then I continued to vomit for about 3 hours. Both my friend Tim and I decided that I needed to go to the hospital. And that's not something that I would typically think of when I vomit. So I must have known that there was something else wrong. He took me to the hospital. We went to the sanatorium. And at that point, I remember him helping me into the taxi. I was still pretty alert, or I thought I was alert. And we got into the taxi, then we pulled up the hospital, and people at the hospital saw that I was having a hard time getting out. So they pulled up a wheelchair, and Tim helped me into the wheelchair and rolled me into the hospital. I remember light being really overwhelming. So I remember keeping my head down and just sort of letting Tim have the conversations for me. I ended up seeing a doctor, and they said that I had a migraine. So they gave me an injection for feeling dizzy and also an injection for feeling nauseous. And then they put me back in the wheelchair and said that I could go home. Tim was sort of like, I don't know, can't you say? He had seen the 3 hours, so he knew in his heart too that there was something else that was wrong. But it was a doctor telling us that, so we trusted that. We went back, and I didn't vomit for a while, so the injection helped me for a little while, but then I spent the rest of the night really just vomiting and really unaware of how much of my physical body that I was losing control of. When I look back, I remember going into the bathroom or crawling into the bathroom or staying in the bathroom, whatever I was doing, and trying to vomit into the toilet, but I couldn't stay facing it. I kept on falling to the right. So I remember turning to my side and locking my knees on the ground against the wall and one against the toilet and vomiting to my left. My body knew that it was stopping to work on the right side, but I was so unaware of that once again from that immediate pain of vomiting. Looking back, I can say I was losing control of my body, but I was unaware. I really started to notice when I couldn't get up and down to the toilet, and Tim was like really worried. I remember at one point when he was helping me looking down at my foot just dragging and going, this is bad. But once again, in my head, it was, I've been told that I have a migraine, and I was feeling so guilty that I'd always downplayed everyone else's migraine. And I always just told them, just go to a dark room, get some rest.
Yeah, now you're thinking, oh my God, migraines suck.
Yeah, this is like the worst thing ever.
Oh my gosh. And you trust the doctor, don't you, to make the correct diagnosis?
Absolutely. And so continued till really, I think, 5 or 6 in the morning. So at that point, it had been about 10 hours. And I was lucky to have a really supportive boss. And I called her and I was like, I just don't feel right. I had just gotten the position of getting the principal role for next school year. So this happened in May. And that day I was supposed to run my first leadership group with my leadership team for the following school year. So I really in my head was like, I need to go. And I kept on saying to Tim, I'm like, why am I here? I couldn't get back to my apartment because it was a 100-step walk up. I remember thinking, I need to go back. I need to get ready. I need to get my laptop and all these things. In my head, I thought that I was very conscious, but I think I was very unclear of actually what was happening. And Tim was just trying to support the best way that he could. And anyhow, I called my boss and I was like, I don't know what's going on. And she said, go back to the hospital. So we went. This time we went to the Queen Mary public hospital rather than a private hospital. And you sort of get stuck in a line. Right?
Yes, it can be a long waiting time.
It can be, but they do prioritize. And so once again, I was even more sensitive to the light and noise. I remember having my head down and just having Tim talk for me. Anyhow, they do an initial run through the doctor to see if everything's okay. I remember them looking like a flashlight into my eyes and doing that very quickly after I'd arrived. And then I heard the word stroke. And then I was immediately rushed up. I remember just getting pushed so quickly, like through the hospital, getting up in an elevator. And it's sort of a blur to me, although I was aware. I mean, I don't even still know if I have the story exactly right.
Yeah, sure.
Because it was all so fast. But I remember when I heard the word stroke, just actually feeling really relieved because I was like, oh, someone's taking me seriously. And that I knew that I was...
you knew something terrible was happening. And finally you had...
I knew something was terrible happening, but I don't know how conscious I was of that. And then also, once again, of that idea that a doctor told me that it was just a migraine. But I remember just thinking, oh, stroke, oh, they're going to take me seriously. They're going to do something to make me stop vomiting. that's like really, if I'm in pain, my body does react with vomiting. So it makes sense. But I never had the typical signs of a stroke. I didn't have the droopy face. I didn't have the loss of speech. So that had not even crossed my mind. Not even like.
And your age as well.
I was 31 years old when it happened.
31 years old. Oh my gosh. Is that unusual?
It is more common than I thought. So actually going through this situation, you know, I've read a lot of stories of other people that have gone through it. And I just think that we associate strokes with older people. It's not anything that ever crossed my mind. But anyhow, I got like rushed through into the hospital and they were amazing at Queen Mary. It is an experience being in a public hospital in Hong Kong because the rooms are very crowded. It's especially interesting being in the neuro unit of a Hong Kong hospital. And, you know, there's a lot of different types of cases that are going on. I was in a bed next to a woman with a bandage around her head that said no bone on it. There was also another woman, a young girl, actually, I think she was 17 years old, that was going through some sort of mental health issue where she could no longer control her body. She had got so stressed out that she literally was strapped to a bed diagonally from me and would have episodes.
Wow.
So it was quite traumatic just being in that space. But the doctors were amazing and I felt like I was taken care of. They just quickly did a CT scan on me to check what exactly happened or that it was actually a stroke. And they found a tear in one of the vessels in my right neck, which sort of how it works is that the tear happened probably a week prior and it split and sort of had made like a dead end. So one end was just holding blood there and it was building a clot. So some of the blood was going through the part of the vessel that was still going up to my brain, and part of it was busy making a blood clot.
Is that why you didn't have the full symptoms, perhaps?
I think with strokes, you really don't have the symptoms until it hits, until the blood stops going up into your brain. I was lucky. It sounds weird that I was lucky in the fact that the clot got so big and basically went back onto that one vessel and stopped actually in my neck. So the blood stopped flowing to my brain on sort of my left side. It hit in a weird place, basically crossed in my neck. It didn't go to the parts of the brain that could be memory, could be speech, could be some of those other major things, but it was slowly getting me to stop having physical movement and causing a little bit of confusion for me. So that happened and they did the CT scan, they found the split in the clot and it's sort of working its way out anyways, even though I was still having that immediate vomiting, but I had to go on a drip because I was so dehydrated. I'd basically been vomiting for 10 hours.
Which is dangerous in itself, isn't it?
Absolutely. And
anyone out there, if you're vomiting for a long, long time, go to the hospital again, go back.
I think that we're taught as young kids, or I don't know.
To believe the doctors.
To believe the doctors. And also, I don't know, I was raised in a strong family, an American family where we
sucked it up. Yeah. Yeah, stop your whinging.
Yeah, exactly. And still to this day, it's hard for me to convince myself to go to the doctor. At the end of the day, you know something is wrong or different, even if you're conscious about it or not conscious about it. Just go.
Yeah.
It's not going to hurt. No one cares if there is nothing wrong. At least you got...
Exactly. It's better to be safe than sorry.
Yeah. But it took me about 3 days to be on the drip and finally
To take 3 days to stop vomiting?
Well, not to vomit, but to feel like I could eat food again. And then I would just ravenous. I just wanted to eat everything in sight.
What was the treatment? What do they do for a stroke?
It really depends. For me, the clot was sort of working its way out. But for a lot of people, if they catch it early enough too, they'll put you on some sort of blood thinner that will ease up that blood clot. I'm not an expert, so don't quote me on any of this.
I say that a lot in this podcast.
I'm not a doctor.
We're not doctors. We're actually just teachers.
But from my understanding and my research and from what the doctors told me, put you on a blood thinner. It was a long time after my stroke hit. So it caused a lot more damage because
What was a long time after your stroke hit?
It was 10 hours.
Oh, right, before you started to have treatment.
Before I started to get support. And still, it's all a little bit vague of what happened in those first few days. I remember my friends came pretty quickly. I have an amazing group of friends that I consider family here that really were there within half an hour. It was amazing. And so they were very, very helpful. And do you want us to call your parents and your family back home? And I was in such a daze, but I was sort of like in a high. I was like, oh, all my friends are coming to see me. This is amazing. I'm on a drip that's making me feel good. I'm not vomiting anymore. And I've got a CT scan and everything looks all right. So I was sort of in this weird la-la land. But anyhow, I remember thinking, no, you cannot call my family or my parents.
Why is that? Did you not realize the seriousness of it? Or they were so far away you didn't want to worry them?
No, I wanted to be the one that called them.
Right, okay.
So I just said, you can't call, let me call. Because I knew if someone else called, then that would freak them out even more. I remember calling, and this is my version of the story, just calling. I remember it being like, it would have been late night for them. And I was just like, hi. And they're like, hi, what's wrong? They could sort of tell already in my voice, and just was like, had a stroke, but I'm all right. Everything's okay. And can you imagine like what we associate with a stroke?
Yes.
Typically, it is the drooping of the face. It's typically a long rehab period. They were trying to stay calm. I don't remember much of what we said, but after I had that initial conversation, that's when my friends really stepped in and were the communicators for me. And my parents were here within 2 days.
Wow.
From California,
wow.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
They were amazing. They packed up their bags. They booked a ticket. They said they would never come to Hong Kong in summer. So we joked that that was my trick on getting him here during the summer heat. Yeah. Everyone just sort of really rallied around me. In a public hospital, there are only a certain visiting hours, so it can be quite lonely because you have an hour at lunchtime, an hour, 2 hours in the evening.
And I guess you didn't consider moving to a private hospital because the Queen Mary is renowned as one of the best teaching hospitals in Asia.
Yeah.
And it's got such a great reputation, hasn't it? Especially for serious ailments.
Absolutely. I think there's so many misunderstandings too that comes to hospitals in Hong Kong. You want to go, you think a private's going to be better because I'm paying out of pocket. You go in, it's sort of like a hotel, and these...
They are, with menus where you can get filet mignon.
Yes. The flowers are the bigger than like the width of my arms.
Whereas at the Queen Mary, you can be in a very uncomfortable situation with a room full of very difficult people, perhaps, but you've got the best doctors.
You're literally like an arm length away from your two bedside.
I remember going there with a friend of mine who was incredibly sick, and I was supporting her and took her in, and they offered her a bed on the floor. They couldn't even give her a bed, and she's like, no, I took it to the Matilda. She was happy there, but I got it. It was a terrible situation. And it's hard not having visitors. It's literally like an hour at lunch and 2 hours in the evening, and that's about it, isn't it?
It's really limited. I mean, one of the symptoms of after having a stroke is you're really fatigued. I was sleeping a lot of that, so that's why I think I don't have memories of it. When I was awake, I was just so tired. The challenging part of being in that space is that you're in a room full of all kinds of noise going on. So all you want is sleep, but then it's very hard. So there was multiple challenges in being in a public hospital. But
how long were you in for?
7 days.
Right.
But I didn't want to go back to a private one because I had that bad experience as well. So, and actually, when my parents came in, they still talk about how the doctor did take time out to show them my CT scans. And I mean, they're just run so thin as doctors in those public hospitals, but they're good from my experience.
I hear lots of good stories about the doctors at the Queen Mary. What was the treatment then? Just the IV and checking that blood clot was going, and then what was the result of the stroke, sort of physically, mentally, emotionally?
I basically could not move the whole right side of my body.
Wow.
So it was pretty traumatizing.
That's full on, isn't it, for a 31-year-old? And were you thinking, am I going to be like this forever?
I was actually reflecting on that a while ago. I don't think I really ever thought that I was never going to walk again. I think in my head, I was just like, I'm going to recover. And I don't know if that was just plain out ignorance that helped me, but I never really felt like that. I had my moments where I didn't think I was going to get over other things, but with the walking, I felt like I could. I've been always like a very athletic person. And so there was no way in heck I was going to live this world with not being able to walk. But when I was in the hospital, when I got wheeled up, I had lost all function of the right side of my arm and right leg, and wheeled around if I needed to go to the bathroom or use a bedpan, or if I needed any sort of movement, I couldn't move. I got my arm back within a couple days, and I think that was a lot to do with the brain-body connection and just looking at my hand and arm, and I don't know, it just started to move. And as I said, I'm lucky where my stroke hit, because it hit my neck, so it affected the physical side, the right side of my body, but it affected the sensory of my left hip and down.
Oh, so what, you were numb?
I could not feel anything from my left hip to my toes, and I still struggle with that.
Wow. So does it come and go, or is it still just sort of numb?
To be honest, it took me about a month to realize. I know that sounds really weird.
No, but it doesn't, because your brain's getting its function back. So it kind of makes sense. And maybe you're focused so much on not being able to move that's sort of minor compared to the other thing that's going on, perhaps. And you've got the emotions and everything.
Absolutely. You're so focused on that immediate thing that you're dealing with, and maybe that's all you can actually cope with emotionally. So you just sort of focus on that. So I was so focused on the movement and being able to walk again that it wasn't until like a month later I was laying on the couch at my friend's apartment, because I ended up having to stay with her because I couldn't get up to my flat because it was 100 steps.
No, but don't buy a walker.
Yeah, don't buy a walker. I did it for 5.5 years, but then after a stroke, there's no way.
You would have had to have moved.
I did.
Yes. Oh, gosh.
That process all took a while. Everything was on a lot slower pace. So
what were the other symptoms that you had afterwards? The numbness in the right side? Did you have memory loss? Did you struggle with speech or anything like that?
I didn't really struggle with speech. I think that I was having trouble with like short-term memory, but I was not aware of it. I didn't have any long-term memory loss, which I'm so thankful for. And I had lost all the feeling in the right side of my face. It was not droopy, but I couldn't feel it. I distinctly remember being like in the wheelchair, and I was trying to like wash my face and thinking, oh, my right arm must not be working still, because when I feel my face, I only feel water coming down the left side of my face. But when I looked in the mirror, there was water coming down all of my face. I could not feel anything on my right side.
Is that kind of how you realized you couldn't feel it? Wow.
Yeah, and that is so weird when sensation is taken away from you. You really notice it when you like swim and you feel water coming over your body, or if you're in like heavy wind or something like that. But when I first noticed my leg, that I couldn't feel my leg, I was laying on a friend's couch and the air conditioning was blowing. And I was cold on the right side of my body. I remember putting that over, and I remember feeling my leg and it being so cold. I can't feel this. I can't even feel when I touch it. And I remember showering that day too and going, I can't feel any water or temperature on my leg. And that was very, very obvious for me in my face at first, but my leg took a while. So my left leg gets bruised very easily because I can't feel.
Oh, so you still can't feel it properly?
I can feel now when it hits the ground.
Okay.
Honestly, such a gift. If you ever think, I don't want to feel the bottom of my feet, just be thankful that you can, because
you couldn't feel one of your steps?
No.
Wow.
So that took about a year or more to come back. It's still different than the other leg. I get a lot of tingling sensations through that leg when I stretch it. Or
how long ago did this happen?
It's going to be 2 years at the end of May.
Wow, only 2 years. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Look how far you've come.
I know, it is amazing.
That's great.
Very proud of my body.
Yeah, your body is really not letting you down.
No, it's not. And there's just like so many glimpses and moments I think of, like when the doctor was teaching me how to walk with the cane up and down steps. And I remember my dad watching me and just thinking, how weird is my dad's having to watch me relearn how to walk. He did that when I was 1 year old. Now he's doing that when I'm 31 years old. And
how difficult was it for your parents? Do you know? Have you ever had a conversation with them about it?
Yeah, I have. It took me about a year to have like a really in-depth conversation with them about it. I mean, they were amazing. They're supportive. We always are having conversations. They're the closest people to me in my life. And What my dad had said was that he came over really expecting the worst. You know, he said he had like a bunch of handkerchiefs in his pockets. He was just ready to fall apart because they were really worried about my memory and my speech. They didn't know if it was still going to be me. Like a lot of things that are associated with stroke, you have to relearn who you are. You forget these memories. And so he came in and he remembers seeing me, and I think I cracked some sort of joke right away. And they both were just like, Kate is still here? They were worried that my personality wasn't going to be there anymore. And they didn't cry at all, actually, when they first saw me. It's been a journey for all of us, my whole family and my friends as well. You know, we've all been at different points of this, and how we feel about it. It's still shocking. It's still weird even for me to talk about it, that it's me that this happened to.
I know. It's surreal, isn't it? And yeah, it's hard to wrap your head around it happening to somebody so young. Did the doctors know why it happened?
We have tried to analyze that. And when I was at the Queen Mary, they were like, what activity have you done this week? And it was funny because I was like, well, Saturday before I was dragon boating, and then I did hill sprints, then I did circuit training, then I did yoga, then I did dragon boating, and I went for a run.
You could remember all this? Okay, so that's good.
Yeah, so like every day of the week, I was like, I did this, this, and this, and they were just like, you know, sort of jaw on the floor, like, you must be a crazy person.
It could be any number of those activities. Yeah.
But it was actually the one that triggered them was I had wakeboarded on the Sunday before, so a week prior. They think that I must have whipped my neck in some way. So this stroke can happen as easily as being at a hairdresser and you putting your neck back the wrong way. They used to call it the hairdresser stroke.
What?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I've wakeboarded my whole life, so I don't remember an instinct or a fall. I still don't fully believe that that was what it was from. They think it was some sort of accident at Queen Mary. But then I also, when I was back in California, I went and saw some doctors, and they're connecting it to something that happened to my aunt. So they're thinking it's maybe something genetic. So my aunt actually passed away in her mid-30s.
Oh, I'm sorry. Really?
I didn't really get to know her. I was only 3 years old, but she had a dissection in her vessels by her heart. I had a dissection in my neck. So they're wondering if there is some sort of link. Hers, unfortunately, was by her heart. So she passed away very quickly.
In her 30s?
In her 30s, when she had a 2-year-old and a 6-month-old.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
oh, that's tragic.
Really, really, really tragic. And we went to Stanford, where my uncle had done a bunch of research with them and kept up to date with them, because we didn't know for a long time exactly what my aunt had passed away from. We knew it was from the heart. Typically, anything with a heart, they'll say it's from a heart attack. But there's just still research coming out about it. She actually died for something called SCAD, and that is basically the arteries by her heart tearing. It can be multiple tears that happen at a time, so it can be clusters, and her tear was so big that it caused her death. And they are doing studies on it because they're wondering if with SCAD events, if it has to do with hormones, because it happens more in women. So she had actually, after she had her second child, the week before, she had started her period back up from after giving birth. So they thought that there might be something to do with hormones and the cause of death. But that's all
speculation. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so when we went to the doctors at Stanford, my cousin came along who was a 6-month-old.
Oh,
and her and I came because they're finding that with like SCAD and actually with strokes more common in women. And so they're trying to do research to find what it is, what it's caused from. Is it hormonal? Is it just women, or what's going on? So
Does she have any testing, or can they check to see whether she's susceptible?
So we both want to get tested, but they said for me, it's better for me to get tested because I'm the one that's had an episode. I'm the one that had a tear. So they suggested for me to go and get all my vessels and my body scanned. So I had to do ultrasounds all over my body to see if there was any tearing.
Oh, what did they find?
They found no tearing.
Okay, great.
Yeah, that's a good start.
Yeah. Phew.
Yeah. But since I've already had a tear, then I'm more susceptible to it maybe happening again. Or if it's from an accident, it could never happen again. So we're sitting in a very weird space. Even the doctors and professionals at Stanford University were like, we're going to be having a completely different conversation in 10 years from now. But
because they believe they'll have more research and more facts and they'll know more about what's going on.
Absolutely.
Cool.
It's just started to get studied. But it's interesting because my cousin and I are sitting there, you know, I'm in my 30s. She's just about to turn 30. And they're saying, you know, maybe it's not best if you have children because that might...
To both of you?
Yeah, to both of us. So that's like reshapes like everything.
How was that to hear that?
It was hard. It was really hard. I think you just sort of reevaluate everything, and doctors are saying these things to you, but based on their guesses and their assumptions. And I came back from that, and that was pretty hard. And I think for my cousin too, it's pretty hard. I mean, and for my uncle, like all of us in the family, this has brought up a lot of grief from my aunt. And because she was an amazing woman. So we're all trying to deal with still the grief from that, trying to focus on like what is the best for us and our health situations. And also then at the same time, slowing down and going, these are just opinions. I think one of the biggest things I've learned in this whole process is that everything is an opinion. Doctors are going to say things that are, some of it's like based in research. I'm saying don't ignore everything. But I think you need to reevaluate what you think is best for you.
And they're going to give you worst case scenario to cover their backs a bit, aren't they? You know, they're going to give you the biggest warnings just to make sure they've got it covered, just in case.
Absolutely.
It doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think after like hearing that kind of stuff or telling, you know, doctors even told me, you know, especially doctors in Hong Kong, you need to come up with new hobbies. You need.
Oh, so I was going to ask you that. Were you told no more wakeboarding, no kickboxing?
I've been told the weirdest things. I've been told to always stay close to a hospital because I love going trekking out in the middle of nowhere. And I was like, well, that's not going to happen because I want to live my life. I've been told no roller coasters. I've been told no hot yoga. They don't know that I live in Hong Kong, the hottest place ever. So I'm always in a hot yoga studio.
Life is one big hot yoga day from May to August.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, you have to just take everything with a grain of salt.
Are you changing, like the roller coaster thing kind of makes a bit of sense, doesn't it? So would you like avoid a roller coaster or are you just like, dang it, that's American. Dang it, I'm just going to go for everything. Are you being cautious at all or are you kind of like, oh, I'll just do whatever I feel like? And
I'm definitely being cautious. I think actually this 2-year marker is a big thing for me mentally because the doctor said, you know, 2 years for any sort of brain injury is really critical. So I have been really cautious. I mean, it's been a really long journey. I know it's only been 2 years, so it's not that long in the scheme of things, but
it takes its toll emotionally and physically.
It's been hard emotionally.
Yeah, I can't imagine. But
so I got this new job.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. What happened with your job? Like, could you go back? Did you keep that role? What happened?
What happened was I had been part of the leadership team at my school for 5.5 years. So I was lucky that I was with a team that was super supportive and knew me. And then I had moved up or got promoted into this position for the next school year. But obviously for the last month of school, I couldn't go into school. I was still basically sleeping my whole day and night. Then I had another month off for the summer, and then I came back to school in the new position.
That was about 4 months after the stroke. Only 2 months after the stroke. What? You're a warrior princess. I don't know. Oh my God, crazy.
Just crazy.
How was that? Were you functioning well enough to be able to work, or did you go back too early in hindsight?
Yeah, I went back too early.
Yeah.
It was horrible.
It's a woman thing, isn't it? Oh, sorry, guys.
It's a woman thing. It's an American thing. It's a Western thing.
Yeah.
It's a people thing. Yeah, it's you push. And I think that mentality of, you know, we push through things. You push and things will get better, right? Just keep going. Push harder. And that is not the case with brain trauma. Let me tell you, although you think you can do it, is not the best decision. So I went back to work and I really struggled and I was in this new position. You know, I hadn't seen any of the teachers or the leaders or the families since my stroke. And these were all people that really cared about me and were part of my team and supportive team. And I came back in and I was like basically welcoming all the teachers back for the first like, welcome back. These are like the teacher training days. And I was so exhausted that I was like, I can't see people individually. So I asked for my leadership team to come and see me first, which is other people. I was like, you guys are going to be my go-to people. You have to be my communicators. And I can't go and talk to all 70 of our teachers individually. It's going to take too much out of me. I had to be so conscious of how I was spending my energy. I wanted to connect with people because these were people that I have relationships with. But I went into that first day and I remember I went and I walked into all of them and I was like, hi, I'm back. And I just started crying.
I'm sure. Oh my gosh.
I thought that I had the strength not to do that, but it was actually looking back, it was such an amazing moment.
Yeah, it's a milestone, isn't it? Because you've made it back.
And that was literally like, a little over 2 months. And I was standing there, I was walking again. I looked physically able. I was a little bit like slow, but I was standing there and everyone was just so gracious and amazing and empathetic. And what was interesting, I come into everyone and I'm like, okay, this year we're going to focus on Brene Brown's work. And she is someone that talks a lot about the importance of connection and especially through vulnerability. So it was sort of weird. I'm having one of the most vulnerable moments of my life. And then I'm like, let's indulge in this work about how do we really connect with people? We have to be our authentic selves. We have to
own our stories.
Own our stories, yes. My team was just so powerful because I quickly told my story in a few minutes and I was like, this is a situation. This is how I am. Thank you everyone for support. It's amazing.
It's so heartwarming, isn't it? Even though you went back early, it was probably wonderful to have that beautiful support and connection with everyone.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And people were super protective. And then at the same time, it's so confusing because I look the same and I'm walking again. So I think when it comes to brain traumas, one of the biggest things that affects you is that fatigue. So it was a fatigue that I can't even describe. It was to the bones and I just constantly felt it. I could sleep 15 hours and still feel it. So I remember just trying to manage my energy as much as I could. And at that point, I was working 3 days a week. So Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then having Tuesday and Thursday working from home. And I would literally get an Uber or a taxi. Uber was easy because I didn't have to spend the energy to try to call a cab or wave a cab down. And I didn't have to explain to the taxi driver where to go. And so I spent many fortune on my Uber rides from Kalimpong to Sayumpoon. But I would get home and literally some days I would get to my door and I would crawl to my bed. I was so tired. And I was also so hungry. I was eating like a crazy person. I could not get enough food down. And
That's so interesting.
Yeah. I think my brain was just, feed me, give me something. Or that was my way of thinking I needed energy. But yeah, so I went back and I tried and I could do it. I stayed mainly in my office. And as I did, the leadership team was amazing. There was new people on my leadership team and they just totally stepped up. There was people that I trusted so much that just took so much care and were so kind. But once again, it's that you look fine.
You don't realize the toll that it's taking on you. Yeah.
Even running into friends that hadn't seen me with colleagues or anyone, everyone's like, oh, you look great. I'm so glad you're better. And I'm just sitting there going, I am not better. But what I had a really hard time with is articulating what I was going through. I still struggle with that because it's nothing I've ever felt. And it goes down to that ultimate feeling of so fatigued and just hazy. And I didn't know how to explain that to someone. And I used the word, I'm really tired. And one of my friends said to me that you need to stop using that word because it's too relatable. Because other people go, yeah, I'm tired too.
Yeah. So fatigued.
Yeah. And I understand people are tired too. I don't want to downplay that. But I was so deep in this really hard fatigue. And then you get to a point too where you don't know what's fatigue and you don't know what's depression, to be honest. Because I really felt like my identity had been taken away from me because I know that sounds very dramatic.
No,
but
not at all.
It was
It's completely relatable. Yeah. Completely. I would expect that.
I know I was only in the hospital for 7 days, but then I was at my friend's house. My friend was amazing. She let me stay there. My parents were staying at mine for about a month, and I couldn't move. I didn't want to be social because it was so exhausting, which is so weird for me because typically people energize me. And I was like, it was just too much. I was overstimulated, so light, noise. I couldn't go to a restaurant. Like, I couldn't go to anywhere where there's noise. So sensitive to every noise. All I wanted to do was sleep. So all those things, I didn't want to work, which is something I've always been very passionate about. I couldn't do sport, which is something that has kept me sane and stress-free for most of my life, and I love. And then the social aspect. And I was like, that's who I am. Like, what am I sitting here with now? And so getting comfortable in that took me a long time. And it's really unclear sort of when depression hits or if it's hitting. And since most of my symptoms were the fatigue, all I wanted to do was sleep. So I'd sleep those 15 hours on the Monday, Wednesday, and Friday nights. And the next day, I'd supposed to be working from home, and I was so lethargic. And learning to get through that and learning how to manage my energy and thinking it was good for me to be back at work. I could do it. I could work. I could be present with people. I could go to a meeting. I could go and present in front of parents and teachers. But then the aftermath would be so horrible. I'd be just so exhausted and just sleep and sleep and sleep and eat and eat and eat. And I just finally got to a point I started seeing a physio. It was really hard for me because after I got out of the hospital, Queen Mary does offer you go to a hospital in Changwon where you do a rehab. But I was literally in this rehab center that I was supposed to go to for 4 hours on a Tuesday and Thursday. 4 hours was a long time for me back then, like that, for me to be out of the house.
You want to be sleeping.
Yes, I want to be sleeping. But I would go into this room, and to be honest, I was the youngest person there. And, people were in there that looked like they'd been forever. And it was older people that looked so uninterested in all the activity. And I was basically on the same schedule of what they were doing. I remember being just so mad. One time they had me throwing a ball against a trampoline to get my coordination back with my right hand. I just remember throwing it so hard at me and so frustrated. And I was saying to one of the physios there, I really need to talk to the doctor here that comes up with my plan. And I remember meeting with the doctor and saying, I want to run again. I want to be able to do these things again. I don't feel like the plan that I'm on is going to help me. I don't feel like it's individual enough, and I'm getting frustrated. And they're like, well, you need to come up with new hobbies. And I was like, I don't think that is going to help. I really believe that I'll be able to run again. And then a nurse came in because the doctor had mentioned that I was upset. So then I was given a depression test. And at that point, it's only a few months after stroke. I didn't feel like I was in depression yet. And it was a 10-question sheet of paper that was so obvious of what answers you answer if you are depressed,
So did you lie? Or?
Yeah, well, it was so funny. It was actually the answer that was the depression question was in bold. So I was like, I'm not stupid and depressed. Come on.
Yeah.
But I remember just being so upset, and I came out, and luckily one of my friends, she was absolutely amazing, there for bringing me so many meals. She came and met me to bring my lunch that day. She, was there, and I just bawled, and she was really amazing at really holding space for me to go through my emotions and, talk about all those kind of things. I think, really my parents, my family, my friends had really learned to hold space for me to go through all those emotions, for me to be comfortable with it. Because I think a lot of the time we want to solve problems for people and, fix it. But it's not always okay. I remember reading Sheryl Sandberg's book, Plan B, and it's all about how people deal with grief.
This is the woman who lost her husband. He was the executive from, remind me?
I don't know where he was, but she's the CEO of Facebook.
Yes, she is. And he was a bigwig somewhere.
Yes.
And he died unexpectedly.
Yeah. And she's really well known, and she was sort of in the limelight of this. And so she talks about her grieving after losing her husband. And when I read that, I connected so strongly to that because I felt like I was really grieving. It wasn't a person, but it was my body. It was
the life that you lost or that you've got to fight to get back.
Yes, absolutely. And she talks a lot about in that book how we don't learn how to support people in grief or even support ourselves in grief. And a lot of the time we go, oh, just how are you? And you're really thinking,
I'm shit.
I'm not good. But I don't want to be like the downer. I've been taught as American, you just say, I'm good. Yeah, I'm fine. All good. But really, she even says like simple advice is saying, how are you today? Just adding that one word of today actually helps, because you can say, actually, today I'm really fatigued, or I'm feeling better, or, you can go into more detail about it and it's not permanent. Whereas a lot of the time when you're in grief, you sort of feel like it's going to be a permanent thing. And I think you have to believe in grief that things are always shifting and moving and nothing is consistent. She gives so many different good ideas when it comes to grief and the questions that we ask, or, we ask people like, oh, can I bring you anything? Or do you need anything? And then you're asking someone that they're so deep in grief, and that's so hard to answer because you're like, I don't know. I'm fine. Actually, I'm fine.
Because what you need, people can't bring.
They can't. And I think such a powerful statement is like, I know that you don't know what's going to happen. I also don't know what's going to happen. But what I do know is that I know that you're not going to do it alone.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It's so beautiful. And we don't know how to say that to someone. We usually say the most awkward things because we're worried that if we bring it up, we're going to bring more pain to that person. At the end of the day, I know that I had a stroke. I know that it's hard. And it's at something at the front of my mind most days. So you're not bringing anything up new if you acknowledge it. But I think we're taught that we don't talk about these things from a young age. And I think it's really important that with people, we acknowledge our emotions. And this is something I've been preaching to parents, teachers, how we work with children. We need to acknowledge children's emotions so that they understand what they're feeling. And there's a statistic, I think it's in Brené's Brown work, she talks about as human beings, we can really basically identify 3 emotions. It's like sadness, anger, and happiness. But there's so many more emotions. And so we need help from like a young age, helping children articulate that and talking about feelings they might be having. And here I am always preaching this stuff, but then when it comes to me, I can't articulate what I'm feeling. So I think it's really important to have your tribe of people aren't there to fix things, but they're able to sit there and share space with you and listen. And that's harder to do because we want to solve problems for people.
I'm a fixer. Yeah. I am. I'm really learning so much from you. This is wonderful to hear. Yeah. It really is. Did you find it easy to ask for what you needed or to ask for help when you did need it from these people?
I think it's gotten easier, but it's been a journey over the last 2 years. I didn't know what I needed. I had no idea. Even finally, I knew when I ended up going to the physio. Sorry, I keep on getting all tracked all over the place.
No, that's great. But there you did. There's an example of when you did say what you needed and you were aware that the program wasn't right for you, so you spoke up.
Yeah, so I was like, I don't want to go to this place anymore. Even though it's through the government, it's just so horrible. And so I ended up seeing another physio, but I tried so hard to find a neurophysio. It's really hard to find a neurophysio that's going to work with a stroke patient that's actually quite high functioning. I got my body back. Like I was walking within a month.
Wow. Yeah. Wow, that's incredible.
I had a cane for a while. My balance was really incredibly off. I basically felt like I was just constantly being pulled to the right. So I couldn't sit straight. I would just be slowly leaning to the right. I was this person that was, if you were sitting to my right, I was going to snuggle up to you. But yeah, so I ended up going to her and she was amazing. And, she worked with me just to really help get my balance back and get everything back and my strength. And I think I ended up using her sort of as a therapist, talking about a lot of stuff. And she had said to me, have you ever thought about going to a neuropsychologist? To be honest, I didn't even know there was such a thing. And so she gave me a name of a woman to go and see and sort of hesitated. And then I found out how much it was going to cost. And I was like,
yes, psychologists are so expensive in Hong Kong, aren't they?
Oh my gosh.
There's no support for that financial.
And so it's like, no, but I think once again, I wasn't conscious, but I was just so desperate. And I knew I was on this cycle of like just feeling exhausted. This was about November. So I had worked for quite a while, from August to November. just on this 3 days a week trying to survive. But like all I could do was really work. I ended up seeing this neuropsychologist. Best decision I've ever made. And she was, what are you doing?
Yeah,
why are you back at work? She's like, I've never seen a stroke patient go back to work this fast. This is not okay. You have not realized you've had a full-blown stroke and you have not acknowledged that. And
so is that part of your denial going back to work about what was really going on?
I think so. And I think that mindset of you push through and things will get better. And brain trauma, you need to slow down. You need to change your lifestyle. I remember being in that first session with her and just going, no, I'm just going to stay at work. It's so adamant, like she's no. I can do this. I'm stronger than that. And that is a message we get. We show strength by pushing through.
And fear of failure or fear of being judged or, fear of not living up to people's expectations, fear of letting people down.
Absolutely.
All of these things we go through. Letting yourself down. And it's catching on to little parts of your old life that you were missing and that you were pining for and, that identity that you were trying to get back as quickly as you could, but obviously it was too fast.
Yeah, too fast.
Did she convince you to stop?
I walked away from that session and I was just like, oh. And then the next day, actually, I was like, ding, ding, ding. I need to stop working. This is crazy. It actually did not take me that long. And then I remember calling my parents and, having one of my many breakdowns, which they were also just amazing at just listening. And, even there, they were like, we don't know anything about brain traumas. None of us know anything about brain traumas. And it is good just to stop. You need to stop stimulating yourself, basically. Even like the first couple months, I couldn't be on a screen, like being on a cell phone. I couldn't. It's too stimulating.
Couldn't process it.
Yeah, we're in Hong Kong. We're the most stimulating city ever.
Even when you go out in the streets, there's signs everywhere and there's neon and all of that. When I first got to Hong Kong, I was like, wow, I can't walk down the street. It's a hypersensitivity, isn't it, that you develop?
Absolutely. I think that I wasn't taking into consideration going on the MTR is like taking my energy. Walking just to the grocery store is taking my energy. Everything was sucking my energy and I just needed to slow down. So I started to create a plan. And then I went into, my boss and I was just like, this is what it is. And he was amazing. And he's like, I was waiting for you to get to here.
Oh.
And
so he could see that you needed that.
I think everyone could see. I mean, although physically you couldn't, the people that really knew me could see it because my energy, it was just so shot. I just was always probably like hunched over and just pulling myself up all the time to just go, come on, go and do this. So then everyone was super supportive. I asked for a sabbatical. I asked for an open-ended sabbatical. And starting in January, so once Christmas hit, because I still had the mindset, no, I got to push through to Christmas.
I can't let anyone down. No one might be able to replace me.
Yeah, my God. I know. The idea that no one can replace us, too, is a funny thought, too, because you are replaceable.
We all are. We all are.
I mean, we're all unique. We all bring something to the table. But at the end of the day, life carries on. So anyhow, I went on a sabbatical. I went back to California and I moved in with my parents.
Wow, great.
It was amazing. It was amazing. I can say now.
Yeah.
It was a really hard decision. It was amazing the fact that I have just such a supportive family. And I went back and I slept a lot. I got really depressed. I mean, I wouldn't say really depressed. I am a lucky one that I have like a really positive outlook. So I felt depressed, but I knew that it was only going to be for a period of time.
It was situational.
Yeah, situational. And I knew that if I kept looking forward, that would help. But we had so much focus, on why it happened. And even after I came back from Stanford and got all that information, it was really hard. And I remember my mom saying to me, going, no more. There's no point of us focusing anymore on why it happened. What we need to focus on is what is going to make you feel better now. And I think that was a huge shift for all of us. I was using my fatigue as a reason to even stay in bed longer, that I think was also like something that maybe sparked like a little bit of the depression more, because I just wanted to sleep. And I could lay there and be in self-pity for a long time, but opening up that my mom would come in, open the blinds, get up. I mean, sometimes I was at 2 p.m. or my dad taking me for, a walk. And they were just so supportive, but we all were still so unaware of like how to deal with this. There's not someone guiding you on this. We saw so many different doctors. I saw like, different counselors, and I just never found someone that was a holistic person. And so I started doing things like, my mom thought, why don't you try acupuncture, which was amazing, and I still do. So,
I love acupuncture.
Oh my,
it's brilliant. Yeah.
It's so amazing.
Isn't it great?
Yeah, and some people are like, oh, it doesn't really help. I'm telling you, when your energy is that low, it helps so much.
I have acupuncture for everything. I love it.
That's great. Yeah. And then I also did like a mindfulness course, and that was really powerful because I remember being in that and going, yeah, I know all this stuff. I've always done yoga and I know my body really well. Like I'm an athlete, like I know my body well, but oh man, I didn't know my body well at all. Like, yeah, I can push and challenge my body to do some extreme sports. Like I was doing like 100K races before.
Were you?
Yeah, this is like quite an extreme for me.
Extreme change in lifestyle, wasn't it?
Yes.
No wonder you felt depressed. It's just your identity was completely shattered and completely the opposite of what you were.
You told me not to run. I was like, I don't know life without running.
How long did you stay in California for?
I stayed there for just about 5.5 months. So I stayed there and I slept most of it. I went there with like, this is all the things I'm going to do. I had this agenda. Still had that mindset of I got to tick things off. And then to be honest, I ended up just sleeping a lot. And I think it's quite confusing to everyone.
I can't fathom how you did the work up until that point. It just seems incongruous with the fact that what had happened to you and then 5 months of sleeping after that. Like that must have taken incredible intestinal fortitude.
Yeah.
And some craziness.
Craziness and a lot of support. It has to do like, once again, friends, colleagues, family. I am so fortunate. Everyone was on this journey with me, even if they didn't want to be. Yeah. I mean, my colleagues were amazing. They stepped up and were supportive. I know it was hard when I was on sabbatical. I know it was hard when I first came out of that stroke, but everyone was amazing. And so people were on that journey with me, and I didn't know how to always articulate it, but we worked our way through it, and we're still working our way through it. I think that's the biggest journey, and like the thing that I'm trying to articulate to people now too is that I do still have a fatigue in me. I still do have to be very conscious of my energy. I am back to my sport, to my running and my dragon boating. Not on the scale I was before, but I'm feeling really strong, feeling really like that energy has shifted. But it's the conscious effort of going, okay, this is what I got on today. This is how I'm going to spend my energy. And this is how I want to build in strength. All that stuff has to be really thought about. And to be honest, we should all be thinking like that. So at the end of the day, it was such an amazing lesson because I was someone that had a lot of energy before, and people sometimes, I think my brothers were like very thrilled that I didn't have as much
because you went so hyper.
They're going to be mad at me for saying that, but I'm just someone that's always been like very up for anything. Want to go for a run, want to go for a hike, let's do that, let's do this, from when I wake up. So I think everyone saw me in a different level, and still I'm at a different level, and that's okay. Things have shifted, and I've thought differently about what identity means and being comfortable in my own story. I think that has been super powerful. But it's amazing though too, like sharing my story with people and how many people come to connect because they have something similar. Everyone is like going through something, everyone. And I think that empathy that I've gained from this is all worth it.
Wow.
Like, really, I do. I connect on such a deeper level with people because of this experience. And I just, thank you for giving this platform.
That was amazing. I'm so moved by this whole thing. I'm riveted. I'm hanging off your every word. I'm so in awe of you, and I just can't imagine what you've been through. And I was going to ask you what you've learned about yourself and what are your takeaways from the experience. So obviously learning to slow down, obviously gaining this empathy and this connection with others. What else?
I think I said it before, but nothing stays the same.
So being able to accept change?
Accept change, and that's the only consistent thing is change. And I think even when I felt depressed, I think the thing that was really helpful was that I knew that things could change. I knew that it needed to be hard for a while. It's not nice. You don't want to stay in it, but sometimes it takes a long time. And there's still glimpses of it, and I think that all of us will have glimpses of this in our life. Life is not for the weak-hearted. And everyone, as I said, has a story, but you've got to listen to what your body is telling you. We don't listen. We don't listen to our stress. We don't listen to when we have a pain. We push. And I still make that mistake over and over again, but I think that there is a power in slowing down. There's a power in saying no to things, because that was my fear too. I was so social before. I loved seeing everyone and being a part of everything, and I was forced to prioritize and pick what I wanted to do. There's a power in saying, actually, I don't want to do that. I want some time on my own. I need to slow down. I want to slow down. That's okay. Just articulating that to people, really saying what you're feeling.
It's kind of finding your voice, isn't
it?
Finding your voice and being able to stand strong and let go of other people's judgment.
Which is so easier said than done. Even your own judgment.
Yeah.
You're like, I should have done that. And it's like, and even being okay, it can be, going back to Brene Brown's work, is you do a lot. You are enough. And even if the biggest thing you did that day was get up and make yourself a cup of tea, celebrate it. Because there were some moments, there were some days where that's all I could do. And that's something to celebrate.
Did you lose hope sometimes, or did you always maintain that little spark?
Hard to say. I don't think I ever lost hope that I wasn't going to get my physical body back. I was very proactive of getting that back.
And you had good progress so quickly, didn't you, as well? Like the real signs in the first month that things were really improving there. It must have been a bit easier than the emotional and the mental toll.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Physical is always easier than the mental. Always. I think for the physical, there was such fast improvements, but the mental was so hard. The fatigue, it was so hard and just felt so long. And really, it hasn't been that long. But I'm one of the lucky ones where this stroke has been a quick thing in the scheme of things. But mentally, sometimes you don't have hope, especially when you're feeling depressed. But people around you have hope. And people around you say stuff that give you hope. My dad said to me once when he knew that I was having a really hard time, he could just, I think, tell that I was off. And one morning just sat next to me on the bed and just said, I just love you so much. And I know that's so silly to just have someone say that, but knowing that people are on your side and that are there, no matter if you don't want to be social that day, no matter if you want to sleep all day, that is powerful. And I can't say enough. The friends and family that did those simple things.
It means so much.
So much. I can't even say, like, my friends, Rachel and Margot here, they were just always there. That's something you take for granted in your friendships, and they haven't even been acknowledged enough for what that meant to me and my mental state. So, and family, people supporting me from afar or just checking in. Some people really run towards these things, and some people don't know what to do. And I would say if you know anyone that's going through grief, you can just even say something as simple as, I don't know what to say, but I'm here. It sounds like ridiculous, but those words are so powerful.
You know what? Some people just don't know what to say. So that's really great advice, just to say, I'm here for you and I'm sorry, or I don't know what to do.
Definitely. We don't know. Even sometimes I'm like so awkward in a situation. Do I say something not? Now sometimes I feel like I want to get deep with people right away. So sometimes I'm probably like, hey, what's going on? Tell me. And I'm probably a bit too intense for some people.
Yeah, I am too. That's why this podcast is going so well.
Let's get deep. Nice to meet you.
And tell me your whole life story. That's amazing. That's such wonderful advice. And it's an incredible journey that you've been on, and you've shown great courage and great resilience and great character.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I'm incredibly inspired.
Oh, thank you. I think at the end of the day, we all have situations where we show those kind of characteristics. And I think the more we even share when we don't feel resilient or we don't feel strong, if we share that, then other people feel comfortable in it. we got to realize that it's up and down and we have complex emotions.
By you sharing this story, this helps others to look at their own stuff and look at their own stories and let go of guilt or shame or grief or work through some of that. And that's really powerful and beautiful. So thank you so much for sharing your story. I need to get your tissue now. Kate, thank you so much. It's been absolutely amazing talking to you, and I wish you so much luck in getting more energy and back to your old self. And thank you so much for sharing this story. It's been amazing.
Oh, thank you so much.
Hi, Confidants. I want to tell you about my Patreon page. I've joined Patreon in the hope of getting sponsorship for my Hong Kong Confidential podcast. Patreon is a great way for my listeners to get on board and sponsor me with monthly payments, and that goes towards my production costs and rewards for my members. If you're interested in checking out my Patreon page, please go to patreon.com and search up Jules Hannaford or Hong Kong Confidential. I would really appreciate you visiting my page. So that brings us to the end of another Hong Kong Confidential podcast. I'm Jules Hannaford. Thanks for joining me, and I hope you'll be with me again next week. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please can you go to iTunes to rate and review it. I would really appreciate your feedback. You can email me at jules@hongkongconfidential.net, and you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Hong Kong Confidential. If you'd like to hit me up on Twitter, it's at Jules Hannaford. I would love to hear from you.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.